We already discussed how one SharePoint implementation will differ from the next depending on the business needs of the organization. While finding the gaps in your current IS environment to be filled by SharePoint is going to determine the look and feel of your SharePoint implementation in the end. So what we discuss in this lesson is a very important part of the planning process for SharePoint. We're going to be looking at some basic rules for getting your existing information assets into SharePoint. Now, you may have some or all of these assets in your organization, so let's begin with a very popular asset, the Word document. If collaboration is at the top of your list and you want to take advantage of version control, approval routing, or archiving policies, then your Word documents would typically be stored in document libraries. Now, depending on the content in your Word documents, you may want to convert and store them as web pages or even as forms in InfoPath. Even the tables in a Word document can be stored in SharePoint lists. And if you need to make your documents available to large numbers of people, you may even have them in the portal's Document Center. Now, spreadsheets are very common in most organizations, and they are very easy to implement in SharePoint. Because spreadsheet data is stored in columns and rows, they're ideal candidates for SharePoint lists. Using Excel services, you can even display charts and schedules as web content, although users will continue to open their spreadsheets in Excel to work on them. Now, spreadsheets could be stored like Word documents in SharePoint libraries, but you need to look at the content of your spreadsheets and decide if it's valuable to the organization as a whole. In almost every company where I've worked, PowerPoint presentations have been used and shared. I think of using a presentation that was used at a trade show in one of my training sessions along with my own data. So this meant having a copy emailed to me to edit and use as my own. While with SharePoint, presentations can be stored in document libraries, while individual slides can be stored in slide libraries. So this can be very useful in creating a reusable collection of slides and templates for building presentations. If you use Access databases, they can be replaced with custom lists and workflow in SharePoint. Do you use Visio? Well, Visio diagrams can easily be stored in document libraries too, but you can also save them as web pages to be displayed in a SharePoint site. Now, every organization these days uses some form of email application. In SharePoint, you can replace emails with announcements, calendars, and tasks, and then send links or URLs to resources stored in SharePoint instead of sending attachments. How about image files? If you have any, they can be stored in picture libraries, and users can create web pages to display them. You can even control versioning of images to be used in web pages and have users check them in and out. What about those old paper documents? Well, even they can be scanned and stored in document libraries. Even cooler is you have the ability to convert old paper forms into digital forms using InfoPath. So pretty much any type of file you can think of can be stored in a SharePoint document library. Video and audio files, drawings, and so on, they all qualify for document libraries in SharePoint, with the only limitation being the size of those files and your storage space on the servers. Well, speaking of servers, I suppose we should discuss the physical preparations for using SharePoint. We'll do that next.